we're welcome. This is good.
You're going to meet him sooner or later. This is Tim Pepsel. He'll probably be appointed in the first meeting in September.
Excellent. We'll do better. This is good. This is good. Okay, be official. I'd like to call to order the Washington Historic Preservation Commission meeting for Monday, August 14th. And if we can have roll call, please.
Carolyn Witt,
Here.
Brian Bogue, Rick Kopp,
Here.
Andrew Clary, Tyler King,
Here.
Jeff Packey,
Here.
Al Burr,
Here.
Sal Maniaci.
Here.
Excellent. If you'd like to rise and join me for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Well, before we, we'll do the minutes if anybody's we really don't have a quorum, but we'll make motions anyway, if that's all right. Rick and Tyler, well?
I'm in.
Okay, well, we'll assume they're approved.
They were already kind of approved by email, we're just putting it on record.
Okay, terrific. Before we get started, we will be getting some new people, I hope. Did Joe McGowan turn in his paperwork to replace? Okay. Oh, I will give some to him on Wednesday if he's going to be at the downtown board meeting, because he said he would replace Steve Struberg because we need an architect, because we do a lot of building issues. And we have a possible Mr. Pepsel over there. And there's a Deanne Fitzgerald who was recommended by Andrew Clary and has met with the mayor. So that looks like we'll have a few more people. I had also approached Katie. For one thing, in the past, we have had the head of the museum, and we had Ralph Gregory when I first started as a liaison, who were kind of, what are you? You're a liaison. No, you're not a liaison. You're a
Non-voting member.
advisory position. And it's important to include the historic museum and the historian, or the archivist, and the executive director of the Washington Historical Society, because they have a vested interest not only in the downtown historic districts and buildings, which is why Katie's here tonight, because there was a discussion about the mural, which we'll talk about later. Okay, under new business, I just mentioned about Deanna, and hopefully maybe by November we'll be up to speed and have 7 people here. And we only meet 4 times a year.
Or as needed.
Beg your pardon?
Or as needed.
Or as needed. If there's a demolition request, that immediately gets our attention, and we may have a separate meeting. Most of our business takes place a lot of times online. When something's being reviewed, we can do that often through email.
Yep. So just to clarify on that, if it is with our mandatory review, voluntary compliance, if they're not utilizing any public funds, there's really nothing to hold the permit up. The point of this board is to be a resource and give comments back. And so if they don't have a meeting scheduled, but the permit's ready to be issued or changed via comments, we can send them the comments of the board to issue the certificate of review. But if they're requesting public funding or tearing something down, it will be put on hold until we can have a meeting.
Yes. Mr. Packey was going to come and speak about mandatory review, mandatory compliance, but he's not here, so we'll put that off. That has been bounced around a lot over the years. They approached the city council quite a while ago. That would have been maybe 2012 or something like that.
Or my time, but.
And, yeah, right. And the general attitude was they did not want to support that. They want voluntary compliance. And we're hoping that some things, even if we structure certain things, then it might be agreeable to adjust the ordinance for some things to be
Yep.
mandatory compliance. Right now, if it's in the TIF district and they get federal funds or
All right, if they use public funding.
public funding,
Yep.
then we have mandatory compliance as well as mandatory review.
Yeah, so we have, over the year, since 2017, I guess, kind of chipped away at that. Obviously, the public funding has always been there for using TIF funds or small TIF funds or some type of special grant. I mean, it doesn't say it has to be TIF, just any public funds. It is mandatory. We have, since 2017, chipped away a little bit for the signage, which we'll talk about on the next item. Signage was always mandatory review, mandatory compliance, and then as we got more reviews and we realized signs change and become more modern, we originally just had no electronic message display, or well, it wasn't in there at all. It was just voluntary compliance. In 2018, I think is actually when we passed it, we passed a law for historic preservation that no electronic message display boards, so changeable copy, and no backlit cabinet signs, or basically any signs that aren't having indirect lighting shown on them, are either straight up prohibited or a design has to be brought to historic preservation and they have to vote on it. So, and that becomes mandatory. And well, that's the next item on here. We have done that before once, and ironically, it never happened. But if you remember, Elijah McClain's originally did ask for a indirect lit sign. It had backlit portions in the logo, and then they had a crawl message display that was going to be black and white only. They came in with renderings design that satisfied the board at that time. The commission did issue that permit and basically waived it. So essentially it's a variance, but it doesn't have to go to the variance board. This board can approve electronic signs that they see fit. And so right now that's really the only mandatory that comes into without any public funding. So if someone were to come in and want a straight up cabinet 70s style sign with fluorescent lights behind it on a strip mall, we would have the ability to say, nope, you cannot have that, even if they're asking for money or not.
What
So,
was Elijah's, didn't we issue that with conditions?
yeah.
They can only change the message a certain number of times a day.
Yeah, it was very conditionalized. They never ended up coming forward with that, but that's the whole point. This board has the ability to do that on signs. So we've chipped away at that mandatory a little bit. I know I talked to John too a little bit, and since he's not here, I don't want to get too far into it because I know he had some things to say as well. I would almost recommend that we do a subcommittee on what mandatory we would be proposing. Just from what I've heard in the past, it is a very strong uphill battle because you are getting to the point where you're telling people what they can and cannot do with their property, one. But two, you have to make sure there are items that we have a lot of knowledge of. If you start getting into architectural styles, even if it's on decks, patios, and awnings, if it's not specifically written in our code based on knowledge we think we have, and you have an architect come up, they may have a proposal that in all reality fits it, but it doesn't meet our code to a T. And that has its own issues. And actually, Steve Struberg warned us against that as well, that in Webster, that actually halted a lot of development because of the fact that they had mandatory without a proper review board that was trained in any type of architectural review. So just wanted to throw that out, that nothing I think we should willy-nilly just say, yeah, let's throw it on
No.
there. We should probably, if we're serious about it and want to bring it back to council, get a committee and determine what items. Is it just painting? Is it windows? Is it awnings?
Well, from what I understand, and
discuss.
a lot of the discussions have been that it would be similar to the sign, where it would be something specific that we do have knowledge about, and are comfortable saying, you know, you need to, I mean, we are an advisory board, so hopefully we can convince people without having to have a stick, but it doesn't always
Yep.
work out that way.
And that would be another thing to talk about is enforcement, because there is no building permit to paint your building. So someone could just show up on a Saturday, start painting their building. I don't know how we put a stop work order on, and then they completely walk away, then you have a half-painted building. So there's a lot of things to work through. I'm not saying I wouldn't be all for it if we can get we have the Sherman-Williams downtown Washington guideline. Is it Sherman-Williams?
Yes.
Yeah.
Couldn't it be also like, a mandatory, the color scheme has to be out of here, that we don't have people
Right.
coming in painting, have those as well.
Yeah, yeah, and so I think we have the basis very easy to say, hey, look, we already did the homework. It's just getting the compliance and the policing of it up front and
Yeah.
get council on board. I do think it's a baby step compared to,
Yeah,
whole
we're
architecture
not trying to
guideline.
leap off the cliff here.
Yeah.
It's, it's difficult because if it doesn't require a building permit, that is what usually kicks something onto us for a review, is they get a building permit. So Jamie knows they're out there, and she says, you have to go before the Historic Preservation Commission. You're in a historic district. But there are lots of things that they don't need a building permit, and then you're up a creek, because we have no idea, and something appears, and it's very hard to advise if it's already in existence.
I guess that's my question, and I've asked this before. And I see there, and there's some examples I can bring up, and I'm not going to, but people have painted signs or put signs up that I don't think belong downtown. But what kind of repercussions can we can't do anything about it. It's there, and I just think we somehow need to work this through council to get, I mean, they don't even ask, it just goes up.
right,
And I think we need to get this through council, because some of these psychedelic signs, they don't belong in our historic downtown. It's just not right. So if you need to form a committee to do something like that, count me in.
yeah, I think that's gonna, well, with city attorney involvement, because I'm confused, is it a zoning violation where it's $500 a day until you come into compliance? That's what a typical zoning violation is. I've also, in the 7 years, never seen us actually ticket someone. We send them a nasty gram and then it gets fixed. So with painting, I do think, at the end of the day, it would be worth putting a committee together to, what are we wanting to tackle and how is it actually done?
Well, especially if by November we have a full complement, we'll have more people to draw from to form a committee.
Yep.
So that would be good.
So,
Design reviews since last meeting, or design review for sign, that we.
Yep. For the info to follow, is this the number 3?
Yes,
The one that you weren't sure if they were gonna be here tonight.
Yeah, and they,
It's in the slides if you need to pull it up.
yeah, they are not able to be here tonight, but because we're meeting in person, I wanted to bring these up for everyone. Let me pull up the email first. So, and they're willing to come to another meeting. There was some crosshairs on, I'm gonna be completely honest, I emailed the wrong Deb when I confirmed this meeting, and then when I confirmed today, she said I didn't know anything about it, so that was completely my fault. I just had the wrong email. But this is the old Knights of Columbus, Turner Hall. I'm sure, as everyone's aware, has gone through quite a bit of renovation. They've gotten their interior permits and then followed all the rules there. They did paint it without having to go through anything, but again, currently they don't have to, an existing painted structure. They are wanting to put up some new signage. So, here you go. This is looking west of the property, so standing in the parking lot. They do have a short-term lodging, a loft, and they kind of have two options here, one for larger, one for one for a little bit smaller. These are considered backlit signs because they are illuminated from behind. Now, that's just why I said I wanted to bring it to the commission to determine if it met our intent, or really, I think I will say when we wrote that, it was to get rid of the box signage. There are other backlit signs in the downtown district. The Bank of Washington is considered backlit with, you know, the George Washington face. The
Keller Williams.
Yeah, Keller Williams, that's a little bit older, but there, it happens.
The
But-
seller, or the,
The seller, thank you.
yeah, we
Yeah.
just got approved.
Yeah, and so if it has a little bit different design, that's just where I said, well, you're gonna have to go through. So here is two options on the Heritage Loft side. Load. So I guess the historic name was the Varin Hall, and so.
It was the Theater Variety.
Theater Varine.
It was never Turner Hall, sorry.
Okay, Varine. So
See?
I don't know any of the names of them, but so they have Varine over here on the main commercial entrance. That would actually bring you into a portion of the hall. So the Varine sign there, but again, it would be backlit, illuminated, which again, we've done with Swallows Nest too as well, as long as it is almost giving it a silhouette look rather than cabinet signs.
Where have we just seen Verine? Was it just in the newspaper
Yes.
for this? But you couldn't tell it was this building from here.
They showed the inside on in the paper.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, I remember
No, that's
seeing
okay.
that name and never remember what it was.
Yep.
And then on the front, oh, hold on.
Is the entire renovation lofts, or is there something else
No,
downstairs?
her intention is to have a loft on the backside there, as you saw. They're doing an adult slushy bar on the north side of the building. It's a very large building. Social club there, as you can see. It's just if you remember going in the building, it's just a big gym, basically. So they still have that intact. It's very nice looking on the inside. In the basement, they're going to do a shared kitchen workspace, basically, where you can go in and rent different kitchen spaces. And then,
Commercial catering kitchen.
yeah, commercial catering,
That's
thank
it,
you.
wants to maybe
commercial
use it.
catering.
And then on the northern side of the building in the basement, they have almost, how do you want to say, it, like a pop-up shop in a sense.
Retail incubators.
Yeah, there you go, perfect, yeah.
So basically, if someone wants to start trying to sell things downtown but doesn't want to sign a year-long lease, they can rent commercial space month to month without having to put in a bathroom or do all that.
It's a very, very nice addition to the downtown district.
I'm
Many
sorry.
people have asked what's going on there and never,
No,
best answer I've
right.
got.
I will say, I think they prefer to do a full presentation.
Yeah,
But for the sign purposes tonight, I told them I would start this conversation. If there was any major glaring concerns, I could send comments back to them, and they can come back to another meeting.
Sal, do you have a close-up of the sign, of what they're proposing?
Well, the social club is right here above the door.
Yeah, I see that, but I mean,
So they're
on
lit
the
letters?
east side,
Individual lit letters is what you're saying?
are they
Yeah.
individually lit?
Yeah,
Backlit
from the
of it,
back.
yes. So think of the Bank of Washington sign that's, protruding from the building and the lights are behind it.
Right.
So it's not gonna put off light onto the parking lot, it's just a matter of lighting up the letters.
Yeah.
correct.
So I wouldn't consider it cabinet signing, but it is technically backlit.
So there's not a cabinet built
Not a
around it,
box,
it's just-
not a box,
Okay.
yeah.
Not like if you were to look at the Keller Williams sign on the Schrader building, it's not like that.
Individual letters fastened to the building. You know, so, Rhine, here you go, individually.
I feel bad about that pop-up shop. If it's in the basement, it's not exactly walkable friendly.
Well, they do have a ramp now.
Do they have
They do.
something that,
They did a ramp on the east side of the building there.
because
Um,
it's hard to, if you have to find it.
Yeah, yeah, and that,
There's a lot of concrete. on
Yeah,
the
there
east side of
is.
the building, a lot.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
So I guess the question on this, do we have a preference on the size? This first one goes pretty much the length of the building, the second one is bound at the second window. Says the same thing, but
Yeah. I think smaller is better, maybe, since it's not, What do you think?
I'm not a voting member, but
Yeah, but you can,
from my standpoint, I like the signs that are backlit like that. I think they look very classy. I like the, you know, what
But-
the seller did down there is the same type of thing. You know, they just did the reverse. They're cutting out the letters and backlighting a round circle. You know, I guess it kind of depends on how much light you have behind them.
Are we creating a precedence then? Are we taking
You've
away?
already, the seller's
I
backlit.
understand,
I
Al.
mean, it-
I understand.
I think it comes down to what you're describing, that, you know, you don't have the cabinet is
Yeah.
which
what I
is,
would
which
say.
I
is
think that's the
better.
point, because each one is cut customly, often when we get these. That's why we wanted it to come before the commission, so it can be approved on a case-by-case basis, that, yeah, okay, yes, this is not a cabinet sign with fluorescent tubes behind it. This is a custom sign where individual letters fastened to the building, or if they had a logo, just like the Swallows, or the Oak in front.
I think it looks slick. It's got a modern approach to it. I know it's iffy when we talk about backlit signs. I keep going back to this Keller Williams sign. I think that looks terrible in our downtown district. I don't like it at all. But it's a cabinet. This is different than that. I kind of agree with you, Al. I think it's slick looking. But to Rick's point, I know we've already approved a few. Do we want to continue down that path, or do we want to put a stop to that? That's
Well,
what we.
I think we're still making a decision on each one that comes before us.
Yeah.
So if it was more objectionable, this is not as in your face.
Well, and that's the point I was going to bring up. Can we suggest a lower output of light instead of something that looks like Vegas? You know? I guess if we're going to agree to it,
Yeah, like
Can
the
we
lumen,
suggest-
like how much lumens they
Right.
put out? That's a valid question.
Well, that was my question, is, does it put light onto the parking lot? And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is it
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't think.
illuminating out, or is it just, you know, low lumens is gonna illuminate the letters?
Right.
And in that case, it does look classy.
Right.
well, they already have two outside signs that are mounted halfway up on the building. You can land an airplane at nighttime
On that building?
on this, to shine on the parking lot.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's bright.
Not that you look out your office window and see it or anything.
I can work all night long and don't have to turn a switch on.
What's that C right there, Sal?
Yeah, internal and external illuminations shall concentrate the illumination upon the area of the sign so as to prevent the glare upon the street of adjacent property.
Okay.
We've had this happen with other signs where if it becomes an issue and they call, we can say, this is glaring, you need to turn it down.
if we have something where you can see the Sonic sign was too bright one time, and we measured that.
Yeah, the foot candles,
And, right,
I think that's technically on the electronic message display.
okay, so that's maybe not on this, but I just remember passing something that we,
Yeah, so on that, you have like 10% during daytime hours
There
versus
you go.
nighttime hours. Because if you keep it at the same brightness at night that you have during the day, it's going to be glaring.
Right.
That is for different types of signs.
that's right.
Well, would we approve it with that addendum that if they can tone it down?
As long as it's not shining on the parking lot, is what you're
Right,
saying?
right. And
Call out the bullet point there that